We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, and future. Timmy Haller is on assignment. I'm Ralph Tyko, and with me is another co-host, Patrick Quinlan, former Batboy, San Francisco Giants. How are you, Patrick?
I'm awesome, sir. How are you on this post?
Well, I'm going to quote a great man. It's cold and it's rainy. You know who said that?
You're so wise. You're such a poet.
A wise man. It is. Northern California gets that way in the winter. We have several days a week of cold, overcast rain. Brings it down to 50s in the 50s, brings it down to the 50s, not back to the 50s, and followed by a couple of nice days, cloudy maybe, but sunny, and that brings us up to the 60s and sometimes the 70s for the summer. People all over the country would give their eye teeth for weather like this, and I'm a little grouchy. Go figure.
Yeah, right.
I'm
Thank
a spoiled little so-and-so. But we're going to have a show, and before we started, before we get into the pleasantries of doing this, I want to pass on that sometime last week, John Orsino, former catcher, came up with Tim's dad, Tom, on the Giants, went on to a number of different teams. He was a catcher, went on to Baltimore, had a little success there. Kind of a backup with the Giants, did play some on the 62 championship team. And like I say, he passed away this week, and we remember him. And yeah, that's kind of sad whenever you lose someone in the Giant family.
Well, yeah, in the family.
That's right. And once a Giant, always a Giant. I'll tell you a little funny story. I have a replica ring. It's brass, and it came from the Giants on a giveaway day through my friend Susie Vincent. And it replicates the championship ring of the 54 Giants. When they were in New York, I was a New York Giant fan at the time, and it's big and gaudy and brass. It's kind of cool, but it is what it is, and it's so big I could wear it on my thumb, and every now and again I'll put it on and walk around and feel warm that that I'm wearing it. It was, like I say, you're a Giant, either as a Giant fan or as a Batboy like yourself. You're a family member for life, and if anything happens to someone in that family, you grieve. So my condolences to the Orsino family and anybody out there that cares. Let's just put it that way.
Awesome.
All right, Patrick, let's get on for a little fun. When you started as a Bat Boy, if I'm not mistaken, you were the visiting team Bat Boy. Am I correct?
Oh no, home.
Home. Okay, always in the home.
Yeah, that's
home clubhouse.
Really the ultimate. Yeah, that's the real ultimate. I mean, the visitors is a great gig because you get to see and be inside the big red machine for 3 days, or Wilbur Stargell for 3 days, or Gary Carter for 3 days, and
Did you ever sit in, or so to speak? Did you ever have to cover?
Yeah, there were times where their visiting Batboy was sick, or I had to step up. I mean, it was a handful of times, and the best was when Philadelphia came in like '77 with Schmitty and Luzinski and Dick Allen, and Larry Boa.
That's what I want to hear about. But first, I want to hear: did you have to dress in I guess you did. You wore a Reds uniform.
Well, no. On those times, I just did dual, and I just work hard on both sides. So you just hustle. It's just right across the way there at the stick. So you go over there and do bats for the Phillies,
right?
The 3 times, and it was ironic because they were my second favorite team because I loved Schmitty and Dick Allen, Lazinski, and those guys, and I knew about Boa because he was a sack guy. So you just work both sides. So I would have loved to have done that. But what's great about home is it's your team.
Okay, you mentioned he's a sack guy. I didn't realize that you had ties to Sacramento.
Well, I just Dutch Anderson and who was a friend of mine who was area scout for the Giants. Then I'd see him all throughout the county, and so you get the beat because I would always ask him questions. I said, who's isn't it? Because you'd read up on stuff in the Great Sporting News periodical.
Right.
So they had so many great writings. So you just read up on stuff in the baseball registers, and you had no internet, baseballreference.com and stuff. So your Bibles were the Baseball Encyclopedia, the big old thick book that I wish they'd still publish every 4 years. And then you had the Sporting News, Sports Illustrated, team media guides. I mean, it was really kind of that was your information, and some of that was late. So I knew about a lot of guys in California that were stellar and played in big leagues, and Larry Boa being a shortstop and being scrappy and being a switch hitter, and he was a big part of their success there. I just loved them. So when they came in, it was an opportunity to you just do what you're asked to do, just like a player.
Right.
So that was a great rush. But the Giants side is, if you can get the job that point for your team in as a home clubhouse bat boy or clubby, that's like the ultimate because they were my team. So it was like the dream, it was the best.
Right. Now I got to tell you, you have what many of us at the Comfortably Zoned radio network have, and it's looked at by a lot of people as a negative. This person has too much moxie. That word. You've got moxie, and I don't think you could ever have too much moxie, because to get that job without knowing anybody, and I know that you weren't, quote, connected, unquote, took a lot of that drive. You mentioned your mom was behind you with that, and how did that come about? You told me once. It's a great story. Why don't you tell me again?
Well, I had always written letters to Eddie Logan, who was the Giants equipment manager, and I knew that by just going out to the games, and then you become a teenager. My mom allowed me to go out to the ballpark and take the Greyhound bus and get out there early and take called the Third and Paul run bus because the shuttles didn't run earlier. I always wanted to get there really, really early in the summer,
right.
So I'd get there early and find out how to
catch batting practice, which in its day was an event in itself. Now they closed the stadium down.
Oh, yeah, it's tragic. It
is, and we don't get to see that. But
so 13, 14, 15, those 3+ years, 12.
Mm-hmm.
Part of 11, then 12, 13, 14, 15, by that time you're savvy enough to know where the players' parking lot is. So you get there early. Players would, just pull over their cars. Matthews or Spire or Moffitt or Lavelle or Sadek or even Mack. So they just pull over their cars. You get autographs. So I knew enough about all that and when players arrive and when players leave, because I would always hang out a lot after the game. So you're familiar with the whole process, game day and the baseball season when the Giants are home. How they arrive to work and when they leave again. So I started writing letters, and then in like October of '75, 2 weeks after the season, the Giants had a miserable year in one of the worst attendance years where there were like 12 people going to the games. It was just real sad. And that was when they were discussing about moving to Toronto and all that stuff. And of course, Stoneham ran out of money in the league, ran the team for 3 years, 73, 4, and 5.
Lurie comes in with Seth at the last minute and just saves the day.
Unbelievable. So I just had my mama said she had to have a sick day from work, and I just happened to, not feel well. Well, it was all a plan, and so I stayed home. I told her I was sick. I couldn't go to school, and I would just want to be home with my mom, and perhaps to have her drive me out. Candlestick. She just didn't blink an eye. It's 9:30 in the morning. So commute hours over, and gives me a drive out there from Marin, and just parks the car up front of the Players parking lot there where Willie Mays always used to park, the entrance to the clubhouse. Right. And I just walked in and told Eddie, I saw Eddie Logan right there. I knew who he was. And I just said, Mr. Logan, I'm Patrick Quinlan, and I've been writing you letters to be a Batboy and had no response, and nobody loves this team more than me, and nobody deserves to have this job more than me, and, the whole
That's where the moxie comes in, Patrick. Face to face, you followed up. You didn't get a response from the letter, which anybody, you could say, well, they didn't want me. They didn't respond. You took it one step further. They may not have read the letter. They may not have gotten it. They may not have needed you at the time and needed you then. What was his response, Eddie Logan?
Well, he's at the tail end of his career. So what was great was the timing couldn't have been better. I mean, God placed me there. It's ironic how life, when you really dream and you really are persistent on, personal goals. I don't know. It's just, that's just universe, baseball God. So he goes, because he had the time for me. Because there's nobody in the clubhouse, just him. It's empty. It's a ghost clubhouse. And he goes, it's nice to meet you. No, I never got your letters. Well, he just wasn't at that point to return them. That's kind of not how it works. You just know people and the connections from front office and, other people.
Right.
From guys that do the plumbing for the clubhouse to what can I do for you? Oh, can you get my kid in? You'd like to be that boy. So anyways, that's kind of how that works. So he goes, well, shoot, look, let me think about this. And Eddie, old school, and he had been with the Giants for 50 years, going back to New York. And his father was with the New York Giants for 50 years. So, excuse me. So he goes, well, look, give me a hand cleaning the clubhouse up. Because the season has just ended. So he had me do like 7 hours of cleaning the lockers and packing up a lot of stuff that the players left that they forgot that we put into, they call them tray trunks. And there were these little trays, like 12 to a big trunk, old school. I did all this work, like 7 hours. And we had a little snack, I don't know, about 2:30, after about 4.5 hours. And I did all this work, all this, a lot of mopping, a lot of sweeping, just a ton of work, some painting, all this stuff. And then afterwards, we're sitting there talking, and he was impressed with the work ethic because I didn't stop. You're young and strong. You can do all this by yourself. Yeah, it was great because it's only me and him. So it was perfect. So he pulled me aside and said, hey, look, my senior Batboy just left. He's going to college, and you got the job. And I'm all, sure, like there's no way. And the reality of that didn't happen until the following year when the players in the area he told me about that come to Candlestick 3 times a week for workouts. So, because in those days, guys lived in the area where they played. They didn't live in
Foster City. A lot of Giants lived down in the peninsula, like his family, yeah, and Davenport.
Yeah, Bobby Bonds and Jimmy Davenport
right.
and Matthew, a bunch of guys. So, anyways, it came to light, and sure enough, the kicks into the next year and reality and my uniform and opening day, and my mom still didn't believe it. My family didn't. My friends didn't. And it's just it's amazing how you set your mind to something and you really love it. You just kind of positioned yourself, and it was, it's like a fairyland fantasy,
Nice. Nice. All right, now
yeah.
Tell me about the Phillies, because we talk a lot of Giants, and you're right. Those Philly teams were terrific, and like you say, they were your second favorite team. We started with Boa, who was from Sacramento, and I must acknowledge what an incredible baseball program Sacramento has. Their junior college program, Sac City, was run by, I can't think of his first name, Jerry Weinstein, for a long time. And he sent a lot of guys up. And they have a night league program in the winter, a winter league program, and they've got the weather for it. So a lot of folks come out of there. Dusty Baker came out of there, Jerry Manuel. The list goes on. So I acknowledge them, and I do agree with you. Boa was a scrapper, and even as a coach, and probably to this day, he's still doing it, if I'm not mistaken. He's just about
Correct.
70 years old, and you don't mess with him. He's just old school baseball who came up the hard way and passes it all on. Dick Allen. You have any memories specifically about Dick Allen?
Well, I always knew how big and strong he was, because I followed baseball as in-depthly as you could. And it was back in the days where Giants were on TV only against the Dodgers 9 games a year. So
right.
The only way you knew about Dick Allen All the Stars was through, a Saturday game of the week or the World Series. And of course, your baseball encyclopedia, your sporting news, baseball cards, media guides, you have the
Lon and Russ on the radio.
Exactly. So because they would tell you about, well, in St. Louis, Dick Allen hit a 3-run homer in the 8th off of,
right.
Steve Carlton, whatever. So
I was just going to say that was the name I was going to use, because a former Cardinal became a Philly
exactly.
later on, and that
exactly.
was the name that came to mind.
Just strong. So I just really liked what he was about, because I'd read about how, he was a rebel and all this stuff. I just liked his style and just how big, and he was just a man-child. So 77, the first trip in, when I was assigned to that series, plus doing the Giants, all I did was cater to them. We're concierge. So Spec Richardson, who was the GM in my time there, I had total access. So there's no rules about being in the visitors clubhouse. There were no rules about shagging fly balls during the visitors BP or watching them take BP. So I made it a point to be right there when Dick Allen arrived. I had to go back do some work. Then when Dick Allen get dressed, then when I knew he'd be out for BP, because he'd always a lot of times not take BP, and this series, he was taking BP, and to meet somebody like him, 6'7", 200 plus, just like a linebacker, literally. He was just a cool breeze.
You play ball. What position did you play when you played?
Catcher and third.
Okay. So when you met catchers and third basemen, for instance, was there a little special thing where you wanted to pick up stuff from them? did you look for anything? Did you learn fundamentals, or just curious about that? It doesn't have to limit yourself to out-of-town ball players.
Always, because you just see all the guys from that era. They kept it really simple. Just play. Do you love it?
Right.
Then play, and just love practice. So bench, even Sanguian, even Gary Carter, who I befriended, who he stayed in touch with until he passed, and that was a big, huge baseball loss and a personal loss for me. That they got good then because it's so different now with strength and conditioning coaches, trainers, all the access they have in Arizona and the facilities there in Florida. So it was all about, the weights, and it was all about playing all the time. It was all about running. It was all about repetition of batting practice, and play as many games as you can. And in those days, it wasn't like travel ball today. Those days, it was Joe DiMaggio in the summertime, Babe Ruth baseball in the summertime, American Legion in the summertime, and then the harder you worked on your own, like a lot of those guys, plus some of them were just flat out gifted. Then next thing you know, they're getting noticed early in their lives, and then a lot of those guys would go right from high school to the big leagues. So they would always just say play, practice, take advantage of weekends, get your rest.
Right.
It's just a really, just focusing on that. And
keeping it fun. I'm sure that had a lot to do with it.
They always. Because you don't want to stress out and get tense about it because you're in a failure sport. And they always said about that. They said, look, we're in a thing where, the offense and the defense, you're great if you succeed 30% of the time.
Exactly.
And that's just,
exactly.
Doesn't even compute.
Even if your ERA is 3, which is tremendous, you gave up 3 runs a game. And conversely, if you hit 300, you were out 7 out of 10 times. So it's a failure-oriented sport, and that takes a mindset. Who are some of the big jokers that kept it loose?
Well, the Giants had, that was another thing about those days because you're with each other for 7 months, spring training till the end of September. So the Giants had a pretty good court of clowns on those teams. Moffitt was hilarious, and Mike Sadek, and Darrell Evans, the Sheik, Darrell Evans, and he was good. Terry Whitfield was funny in his own way. Jim Barr had so they're all pretty, during those years, they were all pretty kind of laid back guys. Madlock was hilarious, extremely competent player because he knew he was one of the best single hitters in that era. Johnny LeMaster.
Did he win like 3 or 4 batting titles, Matlock?
Yeah, 4, 2 with Pittsburgh.
More. Yeah, 4 was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had that short stroke, and he was just, he could hit with any kind of bat, and he could just put the ball wherever it's pitched, and he just loved to be in those situations to deliver. McCovey was mellow.
You mentioned Johnny Lee, and we talked about his self-appreciating or self-deprecating, not appreciating, self-deprecating style. He goes down as one of my favorites of all time because of that. To be that cool, to know that he was being booed incessantly for really no good reason. He had a lot of range. He was pretty, he was just, they were booing him as a symbol of the ineptitude of the team that he happened to play on, and he was the shortstop. And he wasn't a very good, he was a weak-hitting shortstop. So it gave the Boo Birds a chance, and his response was wonderful. And I think that I heard an interview with him on KNBR a year or so ago, maybe 2 years ago, in the morning, and that's got him through life. His attitude has been terrific, and there's more to it than just baseball. It's how you respond to the negativity, and do you give up? Do you give into it? That kind of stuff can drive a player right out of town, that booing. And
so the Jimmy Pearsall
cool.
and all those stories, guys.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, because they feel it. In those days, we didn't draw. 78 was our best year in the 70s. 71, of course, with Mays and their last division team, and which should have went on and
that was the year of the Fox in 71, and that
year
was,
of the Fox and the Giants. That was a great team.
It was. Kingman was coming up, and I still remember Kingman's running skills between first and third. This is a big guy. It didn't take him long to get in gear, and whoa, he could fly around second, and he was a pretty good athlete. That gets lost because of his really massive home run ability. I mean, he had 48 home runs one year. He was a pitcher at USC, and he's quite an athlete. And I remember that 71 team very, very vividly. I had the opportunity to do an interview that I have in the archives with Charlie Fox, and years later. And it was a terrific team. Like you said, probably Mays's last really good year. He was fading.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. At 40 with Bobby.
Marichal wasn't his best year. He didn't. It was a very interesting team. Jerry Johnson was the relief pitcher. I think Don McMahon was as well. But
good knowledge.
I might have. Was it that year too? Yeah.
Yeah.
A very interesting team. That Dirty Al Gallagher, third base, and Fox tells the story of how Stoneham wanted him to put Lanier at shortstop, and that had worked the year before, and he was going to bring in Spire, and Fox told him, listen, if this doesn't work, I know it's my job. And Stoneham said, I know it's your job. Believe me, it's your job, because those guys were a long shot. Spire was a mere rookie, and he and Fuentes hit it off great. They were a terrific double play combination. And they had guys, Ed Goodson was coming up, if I'm not mistaken, off of that team. So it was.
Covey had first, and Dick Dietz, and Gaylord.
Gaylord was. Tell me about your dealings with him. A lot of people don't know about Gaylord Perry. He gets lost in the shuffle of giant superstars that made it to the Hall of Fame. Anything personal about Gaylord that you want to share?
Well, number one, he was just he just loved being a baseball player. He just loved being a pitcher. He just loved being at the ballpark. Loved being North Carolina guy, right. Peanut Farm, all that stuff. That draw. Gaylord was a big dude, and he was always acknowledgeable with those that cared. Like, I always engaged guys because I wasn't shy. I knew this was just a time in my life that, I'm going to take full advantage of this, because it's players, managers, coaches, trainers, bat boys. So you're in the elite company. You're Eddie Logan had a sign above the door when you left the clubhouse that said, "What you see here, what you say here, let it stay here when you leave here." So, there's a lot of stuff that you see because these are grown men playing professional sports. It's just unbelievable arena. It's unbelievable level of competition for athletes. I mean, this is the best players on the planet. So Gaylord would always say, "How you doing, young fella? How you doing?" And then I always told my name's Patrick because you always want to say that. Because hopefully, there's some that would stick. Others, "Hey, how you doing, young fella?" Which is fine too. It's the same thing. But Gaylord always made ice cream. Gaylord liked ice cream. He would make his homemade ice cream in the clubhouse.
Really?
Oh yeah. So Gaylord had
He'd
that.
Make it in the clubhouse.
Yeah, he'd make it in the clubhouse. Gaylord was just a character, man. He's just old school and one of those guys. Anything I could do for you? How's everything? He didn't know he was great. Like it was a different kind of aura that he put out. Like those guys, there wasn't no ego guys. Gaylord was just so kind and so gracious. He was just big leader. He knew he could command because he was a big guy at 6'4", and the stories are all true that if guys were playing lackadaisical behind him or not focused, he would pull them into the tunnel, put his forearm up on, under their chin and in the clubhouse tunnel and say, "Hey, look, you better pull your head out, and this is not how we play. This is not how we play it here, and this is Giants baseball." And and then Gaylord went on to other teams, and then I would see him when he would come in with Cleveland and San Diego and all the teams he played for, and Seattle, and he played for all those teams, and won a Cy Young.
Gracious when he came back.
Won a Cy Young and AL, Barry. Gaylord's he's just a legend, another Giant legend. We had so many great guys, God, we had a lot of great guys, and it was the era. Ralph, the era wasn't about now how social media and YouTube, all this stuff where players are a little more regarded than ever, and
at this point there's
so much money.
Separation. It becomes a class issue with the players. They're making millions of dollars. They're so far removed from the average guy that they begin to think that they were born on third base, and
wow,
you know what I mean. And they lose track of the fact that an ability to do something does, be it a doctor, a baseball player, a basketball player, a lawyer, doesn't make you the person that you are. It's just what you're doing. It's how you go around the track. So when you become a millionaire doing it, you lose track of all the humanity because you could never again identify with someone, the kind of person that I was, Johnny Lunchbucket. You get up, you go to work. These guys don't do that in today's era. In the era we're talking about, oh yes, it was a job, and your off season you had to have a job too. So these guys, a lot of times they do other jobs, when they weren't playing baseball. So you're right.
Exactly.
Different.
And it's like that's what's hard about the purity of it. Like when I was in LA and I spent some time down there, and one of my buddies calls me and he goes, "You're not going to believe what Frank McCourt and what these guys did to Dodger Stadium, the new ownership after Murdoch." So all the box seats that were normal box seats behind first, third, and home were the first 20 rows were all like movie theater seats, cushioned movie theater seats at $400 a piece. And then what's that
per game?
That's all you
need.
That's all you need. That's all you need to know. So it's sickening. So I went down there because I go down there because that's the best high school baseball on the planet. And friends of mine are involved with umpiring down there. They're involved with coaching great Catholic teams down there like Chaminade and Notre Dame and Birmingham. And these are elite. Each of these teams have 3 to 4 plus D1 kids that are going to play D1 or going to the pros. It's just great. So I went down there and experienced it, and how much money is in these stadiums now and in these ballparks, and the wealth of $400.
Right.
So what that means is that I can't take my kids, if I was living down there, I can't take them early. Sit, a couple rows behind the dugout or the on-deck circle, because those season ticket holders always get there, maybe 15 minutes for game time. So BP, you could always go early to the Stick or to the Coliseum and watch the A's. Get there early and just watch
Same
BP.
as when I was a kid, exactly. And then you move back up once the, place starts filling up, the ushers come down, and but in the meantime, you cop 15 autographs, maybe got a foul ball, that kind of thing.
No, it was so great. When I was a kid, me and my friends would go. You would get the Giants side, as many as you could on the Giants side, depending on where you positioned yourself. And I always got I was always positioned right next to the Giants dugout, closest to home plate, right by the bat rack, because I always collected bats. And that was a great position too, because the tunnel, you can see the tunnel from that angle of the dugout. So when the players come up, I would be able to yell, Gary Matthews or Maddox or the players. You always knew who the Giants were. I mean, you get a Giant ball signed or a program, and you race over to the Expo side, or the Dodgers side, or the Philly side, or the Pirates side, or the Padres side, and it was a great day. It was exactly how you raised them, why you love it, and there's not that connection for these kids enough, unless their mom and dad, that they're from enough wealth that they can get tickets in that section and stay there the whole time, and they're going to a lot of games, and they can get any autograph they want because they can afford it. And it's just kind of crippling because it's just so expensive.
And two, the thing about the autograph when I was a kid is that you remember when the players sign it. You look at the autograph, you say, oh, I remember him signing it for me. He gave me eye contact, this, that, and the other thing.
Exactly.
If you buy an autograph for a kid, what's that? Somebody scribbled on a picture? How personal is that? What does that make it?
Exactly.
You saw the person. It's like buying Lincoln's autograph. Well, he signed it, but he didn't sign it to Ralph. Best wishes. That kind of thing.
And you know what, Ralph? Those were the days where everything I got, because I was an 8x10 guy. So I had a lot of 8x10s. All of them are personal. To Pat, my very best wishes.
Right.
To Patrick, good, Chris Spire, before I got the Batboy gig. To Pat, good luck in everything you do. See, so every message on a program, a Giant picture, because they would have a couple pictures or a yearbook, that they would have big pictures of the players in yearbooks, or on personal autograph baseball, or an 8x10. It was personal. Now guys come in and, this era, it's just the kid, there's no person, it's just, that's the signature. Well, a lot of these guys don't have legible signatures, and you can't read it. You just say the kid doesn't take it for life, because I don't know, man. It's just not as personal as it was in our era.
And a lot of times in the school, we are not taught cursive writing in the school. Some of these guys, Musial and DiMaggio, they had a style, a flair to their autograph. It flowed.
Yeah.
Willie changed his autograph over the years. Initially, I can't describe it on the radio, but he just changed his autograph. But it was still Willie Mays, and now guys scribble it. I understand what you're talking about. You mentioned 8x10, and the Giants, I'm sure all teams, they put out 8x10s for promotion, and you could, in those days, you could send the front office a little note, tell them, would you be kind enough to send me some pictures? I want to decorate my office, this, that, and the other thing. I did that. And one of the pictures that came back in this packet of 8x10s, one was John D'Acquisto, which I later became friends with in real life with John, and I still have that picture. Another one was Darryl Thomas. Do you remember Darryl Thomas? And I have a Darryl Thomas story to tell you.
We're buddies.
Well, he signed that. He signed an 8x10 picture for me in the 80s. Darryl Thomas managed in the Northwest League.
Yeah.
And he managed against a guy who later became a Philadelphia coach, a guy named Turner. Mel Turner was his name. Another black man. And Darryl Thomas was the manager of Bend, Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. And I got to see him manage against Turner, who was, like I say, another black man. It was the first time. This is years after Maury Wills became a manager, years after Frank Robinson, first black manager. No two black managers had ever managed against each other in organized baseball until I guess it must have been the mid-'80s when I got to go up to Bend, Oregon in my position as the Tops representative, and I watched that game. And I never, all the years I did Tops, rarely got to ask for autographs. Players, coaches from when I was a kid were there. Sometimes I would, but I happened to have brought that 8x10 picture that the Giants issued in, must have been 75 when I got it, 74, something like that. And he brought to mind because personalized. And we got to talk. I got to look him in the eye and tell him how this is the 80s. This is incredible. How horrible it was that you guys were the first black guy. And he looked me in the eye, and we shared a moment. He wrote down on the thing, to Ralph, peace and happiness always, love Darryl Thomas. I've got that frame. That's a big part of my life, because that was not just an autograph, not just somebody scribbling after game. Here you go, kid. Blah blah blah. It was look the guy in the eye and feel it. Just I love the game. I love the history of it. I love the fact that the players that I grew up watching respected the game more so than now. It's more of a business, if you could say that. I know it's always been a business. When I was a kid, they had, there wasn't a player union. Players were treated like slaves. But now it's got, like you say, you gave the perfect example, theater seats for $400 per. $400 per, right? Mom, can I go to the game? Oh, yeah, sure. Ask your dad for $4 bills. He'll be glad. Okay. You can go to any game you want. If you can get $400 out of your father, you can go. Take a taxi.
And it's just that time was so great because when I talk to a lot of kids today, they don't even get it about all the great stories. Like, if you grew up a Dodger fan, Wes Parker, like every Sunday home game, he'd take a bucket of Spalding baseballs before Rawlings. Go out to the parking lot, take a bucket of baseballs, and he'd just hit fly balls to kids. And they'd organize it because Wes said, okay, this is how I want to do it, because they don't want kids fighting for the baseball. But he wanted a bucket of baseballs, 30 baseballs or 35 baseballs, 40 baseballs. And he'd go on his time. Wes Parker would go out there and fungal balls, and kids, even people I knew when I moved to L.A., I knew some friends of mine that were big Dodger fans down there like I was with Giants, but they didn't get the Dodger Batboy gig. And they'd tell me those stories about they got balls from Wes Parker. And then Steve Garvey would organize lines in the aisles and say, okay, let's get a line. I'm going to give you, and I think Wes Parker did this as well, I'm going to sign as much as I can for 15 minutes. Like he was in control. Kind and gracious in control because, it's game day. And we all get it.
He's got a job to do. He's got preparation.
But he's not going to sign for 2 hours. But so to give him 15, 20 minutes. But it was dignant. There's a lot of integrity there because what's happening is there's too much of that dissension and separation where, guys, stop it. You're so lucky to make. I mean, Mays made $175,000 his last year, and guys are making $20 million. Willie Mays would be getting 40 this year. He'd be getting 40 in his prime, most of his career, and he'd get Kobe money because Kobe got money at the end of his career when he slowed down and his body, was broken down. He still was getting his 25, 26 million because he made the Lakers so much money that it's like an honorable thing to do. Well, Mays and Mack and Musial and Gibson, all these guys would have made unbelievable monies. And to fathom what that means today, it's just, that's why the plasma TV, Ralph, with high definition is a beautiful thing. Because you can just sit at home and watch a great World Series or a great Giants game without having to drop, a couple $100 or more.
Well, you know what, Patrick? So is the radio, and I get more out of listening to a radio. I get the friendship of the announcer. You get. I just love ball on the radio.
It's magical.
It is. It's incredible. You could be doing anything. You can, by the tone, you can know what's happening. The announcer raises his voice just a tad. It's just wonderful. I miss it so much in the wintertime. How do you handle your baseball Jones in the wintertime?
Oh, you're so great to ask that. Well, all my friends go, you're such a different dude in the winter. Like my temperament is so different because it's almost like it's like a bad mood, kind of. I mean, I've never been one to share a bad mood, unless when somebody can push a button out in public somewhere or wherever where somebody's not kind to you and you have to respond with something. But still, it's still, YouTube, looking at old, yearbooks and pictures, and I'll even rummage through baseball cards. The Major League Baseball Network's awesome, even if they have repeats. Like right now, they're at the tail end of the Ken Burns baseball piece, and then what's another great thing is on demand and DVDs. So there's not much. I love
you do it, but it's the competition that you miss. It's that the game's on the line. It's the eighth inning. Who they going to bring in, and that's what I miss. Anyway, if I'm listening to the Giants or the Mets or whatever it is, you just miss the game itself, the flow of the game.
Well, it's every day.
Sport.
The box scores, bro.
It's a great
Sporting
sport.
Green. My mom, we've been taking the Chronicle for our whole lives, and it's in the driveway every day of our human existence. And it's the first thing you do is a Sporting Green, and you go to sleep excited, especially after a Giant win, so you can read, all the sidebars and all the, back
people in the Bay Area don't realize how that got its nickname. It was green. They actually had the sports section was a light shade of green. I don't know how that came to be, but when the nickname for it was the Sporting Green, and that's when the Chronicle was really a great sport
and bigger. It was that broader.
I can't say it was exactly the New York Times in other facets of the world. Did have Herb Cain. I miss Herb Cain a lot.
Herb Cain, the great Bob Stevens.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
who had the Giants beat. You know, Art Rosenbaum and you know, even Glenn Dickey. I mean, there's all that old school. You look forward to reading, you know, 12 box scores, 14 box scores.
That's right.
Now 15 box scores now because there's 30 teams. And then you just read all the tidbit stuff. I mean, it's a 40-minute sports page because you're dissecting every box score, and you know, it's just that interest of the players and the numbers, and you know what the box score is all about. You know, when you scroll down, you know, the errors, left on bases, wild pitches, box, homers, doubles, triples, box scores for the pitchers, and time of game, attendance. I mean, it's just a great game because it's every day.
It's like Bob Lurie says, who is a terrific interviewer on the Giant Network. He says it's a chapter. The season, different 162 chapters, and you take it. It's like a marathon, and you go through it. You watch it unfold, and from the early part of the season to you get to the summer, and they call it dog days of summer, and you see how guys respond, and if they can come back for the September run, and all of those things. Great sport. Patrick, great talking to you as usual.
It's the best. It's the best, Ralph.
All right. I'm glad you're happy doing it, which is basically it's all what it's about, is staying happy, having fun, enjoying yourself. It's nice, and we have the venue for it, which makes it very special. Thank you, for being an additive to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And Tim will be back next week. He's on assignment. And,
I love it.
So I got a new topic for next week. We'll be talking about something that's been in the back of my head for a long time. We'll always have stuff to talk about. Can't wait. Look forward to it. I'm going to end the show just by telling everybody out there to keep on keeping on. Catch you next week. Adios, Patrick.
Honored, Ralph. Thanks for including me.
My honor, Patrick. Believe me.
Not even.
Love your enthusiasm. See you soon.
Love you, bro. You bet.
Bye.
Good night now.